Treasury notes, the U.S. debt, and get 3% interest. Now, they don't care about giving loans to people to buy homes or automobiles or entrepreneurial businesses. Hey, they can get 3% for doing nothing. So they take with the left hand billions and billions, and they buy U.S. debt, Treasury notes and such. It is the biggest scam in the whole world. It is. I have never seen anything like it. Evidently, this has been going on for a long, long time, maybe since 1913. But as an attorney told me, evidently there is nothing to prevent. You know, this is why we see the manipulation on the stock market. If it goes down 300 points today, don't worry. The Fed Reserve and their banking pals, for temporary reasons, can drive it up 300 points tomorrow. So that's why it's so volatile. It's whipsawing back and forth, and people are losing their money left and right. And I believe what they're doing is redistributing the wealth of America. We were the richest country in the world, but they are redistributing this wealth. And that, you know, when we start with the money, but then we go to the oil, they're preventing us from producing our oil through the environmental program and all of these restrictions of the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service and all this. Meanwhile, though, Iraqi oil is being pulled up out of Iraq is the world's second largest oil producer. Where do you think the oil of Iraq is going? Remember Cheney told us, Alex, we won't have to pay 1 cent out of our pockets for the Iraq war.
Oh, yes.
We'll get all that oil from Iraq. But here's the problem. They built 2 new pipelines across, you know, to the Mediterranean from Iraq. And BP, yes, infamous British Petroleum, BP, and the Chinese National Oil Company, CNOC, are getting all the oil. Listen, all you have to do is Google it up, and type in Google, China National Oil, BP, Iraq oil. You will find that they've got a contract. They're the ones that got the contract. They're bringing the oil out of the ground, and they're rolling it through these 2 pipelines that the United States built and is protecting with our military. And guess what amount they're paying for that oil? Well, you and I know that it's around, today I think it was $94 a barrel on the world market. They're paying Iraq $2 big bucks, Alex, to BP and the Chinese National Oil Company. Now, where's the oil going? Is it coming to America? Are we getting a discount? Forget it. I'll tell you where it's going. The oil is going over to the Mediterranean. They're loading it on BP tankers. It's going all the way over to China, and China has built 25 new gasoline and oil refineries. The United States hasn't built one since 1976. And in fact, Sunoco, one of the biggest gasoline refiners in America, recently announced that they don't have any business. They don't have any, that nobody wants to get their gasoline refined with them, and they're going to close up their last 2 gasoline refining plants in America. That'll mean probably 10,000 people laid off. Why is that? It's because China has built, 25 new gasoline refineries in the last 10 years. China doesn't even have any oil to refine. I mean, they have a little bit there in the China Sea and such, but they're basically without such natural resources. But they're getting all this oil. So what is happening is the United States is laundering the oil with the aid of the Rothschild Corporation, BP. It's going across in these new pipelines we built. That is the reason for the Iraq war. And China is being built up. Can you imagine they're getting the oil for $2 a barrel, and they're selling it on the world market for $94 billion? And meanwhile...
Why are the globalists building up China? Because the CFR, as you know, 20 years ago said the Chinese century's coming, 21st century. Why? Why is that the model?
Well, here's the reason why, Alex. Now, you think of this. We first have monopolistic cartel capitalism, not free capitalism, as we once had, but it's cartel capitalism. Now, the synthesis of that occurs when communism is integrated with this cartel capitalism. So you have a combination. Red China is the model for the New World Order. The Rothschilds and all the other elite, George Soros even announced it. You can go on YouTube and look it up. George Soros, you'll see him being interviewed.
No, they say Communist China is the model.
It is the model. Soros said it will be the leader of the New World Order, and he threatened America. George Soros said America better not resist. So, it's easy to get rich when you have the world's second largest oil-producing company, and you're paying $2 a barrel, and it was all arranged by the United States. Now, why would our own country stab us in the back and give Red China all this plush stores of oil? Well, the same thing has happened in Afghanistan. Now, I want to reveal something to your audience that I doubt very few people know. In Afghanistan, they even actually admitted a little bit that they had found incredible stores of minerals, copper, tin, aluminum. Well, guess who got the contract to dig it all out? Go online. You can actually see pictures. I mean, hundreds of miles of huge holes in the ground. And that's why Caterpillar and these other big land-moving, equipment companies, their profits are so high. They're selling all this equipment, and the Chinese mining corporations have moved into Afghanistan. Why are we there to fight the Taliban? There's very few Taliban. We're there to protect the Chinese. In fact, I found a story online that was Dateline, I think out of India, where the Red Chinese government complained to the United States that our military wasn't doing a good enough job in protecting the tens of thousands of Chinese copper and aluminum miners. They're getting all the minerals and treasures out of Afghanistan.
I saw a report, Tex, I saw a report 6 months ago where 92% of world rare earth minerals are Chi-Com controlled.
There you go. And the same thing is going on in China. Africa. Red China is moving in there with all the coal and the gold and the diamonds, the oil and so forth. So we have the same situation going on at the arrangements, and now you and I know what to make sure that the Chinese are protected as they steal all this stuff. The African Command was set up by Obama in our Pentagon. We're going to be there to die and protect the Chinese, and this is why. Listen, Red China, with this recession going on, they're not selling their products. I mean, they're not selling the toys and the furniture and the clothing, because our economies have been suffering. The consumers really haven't been able to spend, especially in Europe. So how is China continuing to build gigantic empty cities? What's going on? I was driving down the road listening to Larry Kudlow, who's on CNBC, and a pretty honorable guy, at least, you think. But he has a guest on from Red China, a Red China analyst who lives over in Red China, and they were talking about the incredible growth of the Red Chinese economy and how in so many years it would be greater than America's. And then the guy said, Larry, that Goldman Sachs has gone in and built 200, that's a bank, right, a bank. But Goldman Sachs, he says, has built 200,000 gigantic warehouses throughout Red China. He says these warehouses are bigger than any airplane hangar in the world, probably. And Larry Kudlow was shocked, and he said, 200,000 warehouses? Well, what are they putting in those warehouses? He said, they're storing things, rubber, lumber, tin, copper, ore, coal. And then I realized why the coal companies in America are prospering, and their profits are at an all-time high, and the railroads' profits are high. We too are sending all of our coal and our ore and other things to Red China on ships. Now, 200,000. Now, I immediately started doing some research, and when I get to it, I'm a pretty good researcher, not the best in the world, maybe not as good as Alex Jones, but, I'm sort of at the elementary level. I try. But I found out that, indeed, to do this, Goldman Sachs, now remember, a bank, one of the largest banks in the world, and they have a huge headquarters in Red China, that Goldman Sachs had bought the previous year the largest warehouse building construction company in the world. and put it to work in Red China. Isn't it? Now, what are they storing up all these things for? Why would they have 200,000 warehouses in Red China full of all of these natural resources? Are they expecting a World War III? Do they want to be ready when it occurs? How did they get the money to buy all this stuff? Some terrible things are happening. And Alex, when you go to Europe now, we are told, now you think of it, now there's $800 trillion of CD debt swaps, most of them still out there. And that's the reason they were marketed around the world because of the subprime loans and all that. These $800 trillion, and Bob Chapman has done a great job of exposing this on your show, you and he, of these CD debt swaps. And, of course, they were marketed everywhere. They failed, and now they have yet to be covered. Now we're being told that Greece, that the whole world is teetering on the edge of utter financial collapse because of a little country named Greece of 14 million, the size of, say, Arizona, and its major export is what, olive oil? But they're telling us that through contagion, or a virus, you might say, a financial virus, that banks everywhere around the world might be connected, and if Greece falls, the sovereign nation of Greece, then the whole world system may fall. And it brings me back to Alan Greenspan, who, and I in my new book, I quote him, and in 12 different speeches he used the term creative destruction. What we need is creative destruction. They coined a new term. They're going to destroy everything, but on the ashes, like the phoenix that comes out, they're going to create this new world order. But listen, this is hokey. What if Greece didn't exist tomorrow morning? The whole world would go on. I mean, I'd be very sorry for the Greek people. But I mean, olive oil, 14 million people. Come on, something is going on big here. They need a pretext. They need an excuse. But Greece is not going to break the whole world. If it didn't exist tomorrow morning, it wouldn't affect the world, except unless somehow it's the fuse of the dynamite. Now, there we have a whole different system, and maybe they're not as incompetent in fixing this Greek situation as they appear to be. Maybe, in fact, this is the first salvo of World War III in terms of financial war. So I'm just very concerned.
No, Tex, continue covering that.
Well, we see these things. We see this global network of criminal organizations. We see this Fed that probably has given out $50 trillion. And, we're worried because our federal debt's going to be $3 trillion, right? Oh, we're going to be $3 trillion in debt this year. How are we going to cover that $3 trillion, whatever it is? Meanwhile, the Federal Reserve goes out and just loans people at 0 or 0.25% interest with no collateral around the world over $50 trillion. And I have the bank audit, thanks to Ron Paul, that shows where 17 trillion of it went. What an amazing amount. Who would have ever thought that the printing presses could do such an impressive... And by the way, it wasn't just the Fed, one little old bookkeeper sitting there. They went out and hired 50 or 60 other banks and accounting companies to do the disbursements. I mean, they were lending out money so fast when the big recession hit in 2008, they couldn't handle it all themselves. They had to go out and hire other banks to lend all the Fed's money they were printing to other banks. It was the biggest distribution. In fact, I think they have lent out more money in the last 3 years than has been created since, caveman days. I mean, can you imagine? That's how much they've lent out. Now, they will not tell us. The only congressman, other than Ron Paul, that's done a good job on this is that Congressman Alan Grayson. And you can say what you want to. He's a liberal Democrat, but he sure embarrassed the chief counsel of the Fed and Ben Bernanke a little bit. But by the way, they made sure he was put out of office the next election. Alan Grayson.